The line at the First Liberty Bank moved slowly, its quiet hum interrupted only by the low rustle of papers and occasional coughs. At the end of the queue stood an elderly man, his posture straight despite the years etched into his skin. His name was Frank Dawson, Sergeant First Class, retired. A Vietnam vet with stories folded neatly between the medals on his mantle and the limp in his right leg. He clutched a government-issued check in his hand, modest in amount but vital for his rent. Frank didn't look like much anymore. Just a worn-out coat, boots that had seen better days, and a faded cap stitched with the emblem of his old unit. But behind those eyes was a man who had once jumped from helicopters into the thick of battle, who had carried wounded comrades through fields of fire. And all he wanted today was to cash a check. When it was finally his turn, Frank stepped forward and laid the check on the counter. The teller, young, crisply dressed, with the kind of polished demeanor only freshly minted degrees can buy, glanced at it with mild disinterest. Her name tag read, Chloe. "I need to cash this, miss," Frank said, his voice steady, with the slow cadence of someone who'd learned to speak with purpose. Chloe raised an eyebrow. "Do you have an account here?" "No, ma'am. Just need to cash the check. It's government issued. I'm sorry, but without an account, we can't cash it." Frank blinked. "Ma'am, it's a veteran's benefit check. I've done this before. Usually, there's no issue." Chloe's lips tightened. She leaned back in her chair. "Policy changed last month. If you're not a customer, we can't process it. You're welcome to open an account, but I'll need 2 forms of current ID and proof of address." Frank's smile waned. "I don't drive anymore. Don't have much in the way of bills. But I got my VA card and my military ID." "Those won't suffice," Chloe said sharply, already turning to the next customer. "Next, please." The air shifted. Frank stood frozen for a moment, the check still on the counter, the unspoken insult hanging like smog. The line of customers behind him began to murmur. One woman stepped forward. "You can't just send him away like that. That's a veteran. It's bank policy," Chloe snapped. "If anyone has an issue, you're free to speak with management." Frank didn't argue. He took the check back, folded it with trembling fingers, and turned to leave. He didn't raise his voice, didn't plead. He just walked toward the glass doors in silence, pride and humiliation battling for control of his face. But halfway out, a voice called from the back of the room. "Frank Dawson." Frank turned. A man in civilian clothes, tall, broad-shouldered, walked in with a sense of purpose. He wore a blazer, his silver hair cut close, his stride unmistakably military. Frank squinted, and then his eyes lit up. "General Walker." The man extended a hand. "Heard you were back in town. Didn't expect to find you here." Frank took the hand. "It's been a while, sir." Walker glanced at Chloe. "Is there a problem?" Chloe, suddenly alert, stood straighter. "Sir, this man was trying to cash a check without an account. We have protocols." Walker cut her off, pulling a badge from his pocket. "Brigadier General Thomas Walker, retired. Currently working with the Department of Veteran Affairs. This man is a decorated combat veteran, and his check is valid under federal law. Refusing to cash it without legal basis constitutes discrimination. And guess what?" He handed Chloe a folded document. "This is a federal warrant for audit and investigation. I've seen too many complaints about how this branch treats vets. 7 minutes ago, I got a call. Now I'm here. Funny how that works." Chloe's face turned white. Gasps echoed through the lobby. Someone began to clap, then another, and soon, the small branch erupted in applause. Walker turned to Frank, gently took the check from his hand, and laid it back on the counter. "Cash it." Chloe hesitated, her hands shaking as she typed at her terminal. "Yes, sir." The money was handed over in silence. Frank, bewildered, accepted it slowly. Walker turned to him. "There's a diner down the road. Let me buy you lunch. Tell me how you've been holding up." Frank's lips trembled. He nodded. As they walked out together, shoulder to shoulder, someone held the door open. Frank glanced back. Chloe had vanished into the office, no longer the confident gatekeeper of procedure, but a reminder of something deeper, that policy without humanity is just another kind of cruelty. At the diner, over steaming cups of coffee, Walker listened as Frank recounted stories, of younger days, of lost brothers, of medals that couldn't pay rent. The general didn't interrupt, he just listened. Then he leaned forward. "Frank, I'm starting a housing initiative for vets. We've got funding, government support, but we need people who know what it means to serve. I want you on the advisory board." Frank blinked. "Me? You?" Walker smiled. "You've earned your seat, and it's time others remembered what that means." Tears welled in Frank's eyes, unashamed and full of grace. That night, Frank slept in his apartment with a new sense of peace. The check had helped, but what mattered more was something he hadn't felt in years: dignity, respect, purpose. 3 weeks later, the First Liberty Bank hosted a quiet press conference. Chloe was no longer employed there. New training programs were launched, policies revised, and a plaque was hung in the lobby, dedicated to Sergeant First Class Frank Dawson, a veteran, a fighter, a reminder. The story went viral, not because it was sensational, but because it was real. In a world often too busy to notice the quiet dignity of those who build it, Frank's story reminded people that heroism doesn't always wear a cape. Sometimes, it stands patiently in line, holding a check, hoping for decency. And sometimes, all it takes is 7 minutes, and the right person walking through the door, to change everything.